young people who are early in your careers and working very hard, and I really am grateful that you were able to make it. I know some of you are here because you are friends, and therefore just being nice. Appreciate that. I also hope that some of you are here really because you thought this was going to be worth it. So thank you for coming. As the topic suggested, we are going to talk about leadership. As long as I have looked at this as a subject, I have found that there's volumes and volumes that people write and say and now put on video, some of which I'm going to use today. And that's my sound director. So, a lot of people talk about this, and if you do a Google search on leadership, the joke is that after sex, it's the largest number of hits that you will get on the internet. Thankfully, sex still outsells leadership. So what I'm going to share with you today is yet another perspective. And this is not to say that my perspective is better or worse, or to confuse you further with other perspectives. But hopefully, at least my experience with this kind of stuff is that some part of it resonates. You pick up a few ideas that may work for you, may not work for you. But this whole quest for becoming a better leader, or indeed becoming a better person, is, as you know, a lifelong process. So some of these ideas help along the way. At least that is how I have benefited from these ideas. And the reason I'm saying all this is that I don't want you to think that I'm some sort of an expert on this subject at all. I'm only sharing some things that I've learned along the way in the spirit that it could be useful to you as well. Now, we titled this Authentic Leadership. And the reason we picked that as a title is that there are a lot of things that are said about leadership, and I think we have started using the term too loosely. We sort of casually say somebody is a leader, or we casually self-proclaim ourselves as leaders. A lot of people do that. We also talk about people as being somewhat fake, that they make themselves out to be more than what they actually are. So this is one particular aspect of leadership that I'm going to talk about today, which is, in my view, and in my sort of work in trying to understand why a person is a leader or not a leader, what are some of the things that seem very real and seem as a constant. So this is not a complete set of things, but a few things that I feel, at least to my mind, are the constants when people assess leadership. Now, some of you may have heard this talk of mine before. You also know that I try to make this as interactive as possible, so please bear with me and don't give away my punchlines, because otherwise the thing will be over very quickly, and we do have to spend about an hour and a half together. By the way, I won't take more time than that, so I will make sure that we finish on time. So if we can have the, yes, thank you. So let me start with some very mundane questions. How many of you think you are a leader? And this can be you can be as humble as you want, or as arrogant as you want. It's okay, here we are not recording this. How many of you think you are really a leader? Okay. About half the people think so, other half a bit shy to admit. How did you come to that conclusion that you are or you are not? Anybody want to share that with me? Anybody who raise their hands? So there are no free answers here, right? So anybody who raise their hands to say that you think you are a leader, why do you think you are a leader? Yeah. We have hand mics that we can use. Sorry, let me just get the mic, because otherwise people won't be able to.
I am Sinha. I'm working as a senior product manager in the software industry.
Okay.
So my thought of why I'm thinking as a leader is like currently, first thing like I'm leading a team
Okay, so you're already leading a group of people. Therefore, you think you should be.
And one of those things what I feel in my day-to-day life, I try to be a leader.
Okay. Okay, so we'll come back to you and ask you more about how you try to do that. Anybody else want to offer a perspective? Yeah.
I have a very different view of leadership. How I view leadership is...
No, firstly. I'm not asking you about your view on leadership. Did you raise your hand that you are a leader?
Like this.
Halfway. Yeah. Okay, so tell us why you said half.
Okay, so my view on leadership is not just leading a team, but it's about leading yourself first and then using that knowledge to lead a particular set of people.
What do you mean by leading yourself first?
Right, so...
Is that the half full part?
Kind of, yes. Okay. So right now, if I look at myself, I'm kind of shaking a bit. So this is, self-knowledge, self-awareness. So whenever I'm speaking to the public, there is this aspect of it. So this is something that I need to control. And once I do that, then only I can lead a team of, a few people and things like that. So what I feel is there are 4 components which I have borrowed from Ayurveda and things mind, body, heart and spirit is what we call it. So mind is having intellectual ability, body is having the physical strength, spirit is having a sense of purpose, and mind, body, heart is having sense of your emotions. If you're feeling sad, then how do you...
You say half, you are right, you're done with the 2 of those, or you are done with half of these?
No, I'm trying to work on all the 4.
Okay, let me come back to you as well to talk more. Yes, you want to say something.
Hi, my name is Raghav. I'm actually doing my B.Tech. So anyway, according to me, leadership is more of if you can bring out the better in the other person who you're working with, rather than, because otherwise it's just managerial post, right? Because if you are a head of a team,
so you are telling him that he's otherwise got a managerial post, but only if he's
leadership is something like you're gonna nurture something that's there in other people and make them do better.
Okay.
So overall the team does better.
So do you think you are doing that in your B.Tech?
Actually, I'm holding a post of council and I'm also holding a post of the student placement.
Okay.
So I think I'm doing a leadership work. Isn't like I'm trying to make them do better as a person who they are and make their profile better. So that's what I think.
Okay. Anybody who didn't raise their hand want to say why they didn't raise their hand? Are there people here who aspire to be a leader? How many of you please aspire to be a leader? Everybody, I hope. Anybody who doesn't? It's okay. I mean, sometimes I do these leadership talks and people tell me, why should I not bother? I'm okay the way I am. No, you feel that way sometimes? No, you but you hear that from people also, your leadership kya cheez hai? Why should I worry? Okay, that's a different thing that you should not be. Right. Okay, so somewhere between considering ourselves to be a leader or aspiring to be a leader covers all of us here in this room. So I think it begs the question that, okay, if we all think we are a leader or we aspire to be a leader, what does it mean to be labeled, to acquire that label, or to earn the right to be called, right? So I will like to do a little bit of a pop quiz. We will not grade you or score you on this quiz. And I'd like you to take a look at a few people who I have in these slides, who people consider to be leaders. And I'd like to ask you what you think. Okay? So the question really is, are any of these people a leader? And I'd like you to really participate. Don't be shy, or don't be ambivalent. Take a point of view, and then we'll discuss each of these. So what do you think of Mahatma Gandhi as a leader? How many of you is a leader? Anybody think he's not a leader? Anybody? Come on. Usually there's 1 or 2 people in the audience who think that he was responsible for India's partition and should not be called a leader. Anybody feel that way? Not in this audience. Okay? Usually Gandhi gets a pretty clear vote whenever I do this. Right? I mean, it's a good place to start, to set a benchmark. starts with laughs. This man has been the Prime Minister of our country for 10 years. Here is the question. Okay, we need the mic. Here is the mic. So what is the question? Firstly, let me get you just hold your point of view. How many people think he is a leader? Now come on, let's not be shy. Yeah, let's take a position. So I think there is 1, 2, yeah. So there's clearly a minority of people, and some of you I'd like to come back to. I hope you can give me some good answers as to why you think he should be a leader. The others, I assume, are saying that he is not a leader, right? You also did not raise your hand, right? About him. You think he's a leader? Okay. So please tell us why, or whatever you were going to say, please let me know.
Sir, as in Mohan Singh, he had the capability to lead the people, but he could not get the chance.
I see. So you think he has the capability, but he didn't get the chance?
Yes, right.
So you are not saying he's not a proven leader in your mind.
But he is a leader. Okay.
He is a leader.
Yes.
Okay.
But
okay. So there is something about having the capability but not having the chance. Okay, that's an interesting idea. Anybody want to comment on why you think he's a leader? No, we can't. I'm running the workshop. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I think he's a half leader. By half leader, I mean that he was a great leader when he was the finance minister. As a finance minister, he was an excellent finance minister, and he did everything for India, for the growth of the country. But as a prime minister, he failed
Second term he failed.
Second term he failed.
And
most people agree with that.
Yeah.
Point.
For the first time he was a leader, and for the second term he acted as a puppet.
Oh, I see. We won't get into what is the definition of puppets. Okay. Any other points of view on Pramath Singh that is different from their point of view? Any other point? Yeah.
So, I am Gaurav Syal. So, I would term him as a silent leader.
Silent leader.
Yes.
Nice.
Actually, sir, he did everything possible for India, for the growth of the economy, but he wasn't like
taking all the credit.
Yeah, like Mr. Narendra Modi, who is very, you can say, verbose, who takes all the credit. Not all the credit, but he's not good at expressing himself. That
Okay,
he has
we'll
done.
come to Mr. Modi, we'll analyze it. How many of you know about Medha Patkar? So, leader, not leader?
Yes.
Leader, anybody thinks she's not a leader? She's a troublemaker also, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, is she a leader or not a leader? Leader. Not a leader? Anybody?
Leaders can be troublemakers.
Leaders can be troublemakers, okay. You think, your smile suggests that you have been in that place, right? Yeah. What about this man?
He's a role
How
model.
many people think he's a leader? Come on, greatest cricketer ever for India. Come on, two hands up, bro. Okay, some people are getting convinced as I speak. Why do so many of us think of him not as clearly a leader as a Mahatma Gandhi, for example? Because of his Ferrari or because of his controversies or that he hawks products, he just focused on cricket. And this is true for all audiences. This is I'm not trying to make a comment on you, and I'm not such a big fan of this. But why do we not think of him as a leader?
Maybe he's a good player, but not a captain.
And what do you mean by that? So what would you have expected as a captain?
So the leadership skills that he should pursue in the middle himself, like leading as a captain, executing, convincing people to lead the way he wants, or maybe to play the way he needs directing. So maybe people are not getting convinced.
And you have evidence of that somewhere in your head? I mean, something is giving you that impression, no?
No, supposedly compare him to Dhoni, so he's doing much better job as a captain.
Dhoni is?
Yeah, he
Okay.
is.
We'll come back. Here's another face. How many people think he's a leader? Anybody that thinks he's not? Some of these are very easy and obvious. Some of them are not, surprisingly obvious. What about him? How many think he's a leader? Okay. Amitabh, why do you think he's a leader? No, I won't ask you. Anybody not spoken? Did you raise your hand? Yeah, so why do you think he's a leader?
Yeah, means as and when while he's not famous for things that are positive, impacting on the society, he has been involved in multiple controversies. But whenever he has spoken, there has been a large following to what he says. So the way I'm putting it is, leader is someone, whatever he says, people follow.
Okay.
And
So you feel that, are you thinking more Satyamev Jayate kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. How many think he's a leader? Lots of people think he's a leader. How many people think he's not a leader? You don't think he's a leader? Who else? Anybody else? You want to offer a view?
He has better marketing routine.
Okay. So you think he's all talk and not enough? That's a popular view also. I mean, if you see the editorials and so on. This one? Yes?
Yes.
Yes? Clear yes? Any doubts on this one? No? Here's our favorite. How many think he's a leader? Wow! Look at this. Somehow Dhoni always gets this. We'll come back to discuss why the difference between Dhoni and Tendulkar. Well, clearly all the statistics show that Sachin is way ahead. Most of you are from Haryana, some of you are from Delhi, I'm sure, and some of you know about what's happening in neighboring Delhi. What do you think? Is he a leader? Yes? Yes? Yeah, usually the house is split about half and half. Anybody who thinks he's not a leader like to comment on it? Not a leader?
He does not know his strengths and weaknesses. This is my thought.
He does not know.
Yes. His
So
strengths
you are very focused on leading yourself before leading others. Yes. So you feel, yes.
I think he's playing more like a single man army.
Ah, so he's very
He
much,
doesn't have a supporting team with him.
doesn't have a lot of people with him. Okay. I see some puzzled expressions even. Why is he on these charts? Okay, I'll pass on.
Oh God.
God! He's Rahul Gandhi. How many of you think he's a leader? Few people do think, unfortunately you're saying, but you think he's a leader. You think he's a, no, you don't think, by mistake you. Leading the comedy clubs of India. That's a bit harsh, but okay. How many think he's a leader? Wow. Wow. When I was growing up, there would be no hands up. Something has changed in our society that Hitler is considered a leader. What about Mary Kom? Oh, you all were doing hail? Mary Kom? Yes? How many think she's a leader? Okay, the house is kind of split on this. Some people who don't think she's a leader, why do you not think she's a leader?
She is more of an inspiration than a leader.
Sorry?
She is more of an inspiration.
More an inspiration rather than leader. Okay. What do you think? He invited himself to ISB, so we had to invite him. He said, I've never come to ISB yet. Again, house is split. Mr. Bachchan is performing today on the celebration of the BJP's 2 years in power. How many of us think of him as a leader? 1, 2, 3. Why do you think of him as a leader?
So as for me, he beats out the best in people. I have heard a lot of actors, and they respect him. They learn a lot from him.
Okay.
From that angle.
Yeah. Okay. Bill Gates? Yes? No? Yeah, quite a few people. This man? Yes? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to finish off soon. So what about this man? Internet.org, free internet. So, how did you take this call, right? Whether they were... Can I just leave this with you that way? I can leave it. So how did we decide on some of these people? Very quickly people's hands went up, hands went down, and very quickly we distinguished between people. I thought, let let's take the example of a Manmohan Singh or a Sachin Tendulkar versus a Dhoni. There was almost unanimity in the room that in some cases we were unanimous that yes, in some cases we were unanimous that it was not going to be everybody saying he's a leader or she's a leader. What really was driving people using? Can you take this? So I'd like you to offer me some explanations to this question. Your view is, how do you decide whether somebody is a leader or not? And we just went through this, right? I just flashed up a bunch of pictures and you very quickly were able to say yes, no, maybe yes, no, half, sometimes, and so on. So what were you all thinking? I'm just going to write some of these down as you. I'm just going to write some of these down. What were you thinking the moment you? Yes, ma'am, in the back.
So somebody who is able to inspire, influence, and motivate.
Okay, inspire, influence, motivate. Yeah, what else? Yeah.
Somebody who is able to
Steer people. Okay. I'm just using some words. Yeah.
So I think it's not about excelling individually, but excelling as a group. So whatever team we are, whatever people work with, again, related to steering.
Sorry?
So it's again related to steering.
Yeah.
You don't believe in excelling individually, but excelling as a team.
Yeah. Sorry, where are you at? Who was? Yeah.
I have a counter point. So not individually as a team, but individually excelling individually, despite there being some difficulties like
So okay, so individual excellence is also there. You're saying. Okay.
The kind of scale and impact
Scale and impact. Okay. Yeah.
decision making.
Decision making. Anything else?
Setting of standards.
Sorry, you go ahead.
I think there is a hidden factor which is known as creeping bias, which decides that who is the leader or not.
So what do you mean by that? In this case, you think because everybody has a bias on Mother Teresa, we said she's a leader. Is that what you mean?
Actually, that is totally depends on, as per my view, that totally depends on the perception, how you take the things. So on that person to decide whether he may be leader or not. Because our country is leader for someone and for some people in the leading committee.
Okay. I'm going to call it, yeah. Of the people. So leadership is instinctive, you think. And but how do you identify that? Okay. So it's kind of in the DNA of the people. Right. Oh, I see. Okay, so you're saying that that's kind of built in. Let me just give some other people a chance and come back. Yeah. Positive change maker. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Visionary.
Visionary. Okay. Yeah.
Someone who takes initiative.
Somebody who takes initiative. So these were some of the things that we were looking at when we were assessing the leadership of these people.
People management.
Their ability to manage people. Okay. What else? Yeah.
Some people are leaders just by popular word of mouth.
Okay. Popularity. Okay. Somebody in the back at that kind of. Yeah.
That's the transformation of energy to
Okay, so you kind of pass your transmitting of energy to others. Is that what you meant? Okay, so what's your name again? Nikhil? Can you talk? So we have Nikhil here, and take my word for it that Nikhil has all these characteristics. Nikhil is a great decision maker. Nikhil is a great decision maker. He can inspire all of us. He's visionary. He can have impact at scale. He's a great people manager. He takes initiative. He's courageous. He's popular. He transmits energy. And we can add many more things to this. Right? So I am telling you he can do all of these things. He's capable of all these things. He is also saying that he believes that he can do all these things. Would you think of him as a leader? Yes? No? Yes or no?
Not until demonstration.
Sorry?
Not until demonstration.
Not until you see a demonstration of it. But
Exhibit these qualities in one to see.
so how would you see? Take a seat, please. Thank you. Thank you for the demonstration. People are still not convinced. What can I do?
So even the body language parts are major.
Oh, the body language was not. Nikhil, there's some real feedback for you. How would you see demonstration? Popularity question would be. What is causing this noise?
The hand mic, I guess. Hand mic.
Where's the hand mic there? Yeah, Raghav, you had a point?
Actually, it's about the qualitative analysis of all the factors that you assess, and then you have a personal viewpoint about what the person is doing, and if you consider that cause good.
Video. Sorry.
If you consider his cause good and a quantitative analysis of what he's done,
Right.
that's how you judge a person of being a leader or not.
So this is exactly what is happening in a lot of organizations now, right? Where people are assessed for their leadership capabilities, right? I worked for many years at McKinsey, and there were very detailed parameters to assess how good you were on multiple criteria and I think this is true not just for McKinsey, lots of organizations now, HR departments and HR consulting firms take a lot of sort of pride in the work that they do in the area of leadership assessment. Not only are people assessing leadership, they are assessing leadership potential even when you are 5 years old. That will you have the visionary qualities and transformation qualities that are required. So this has become big business, which is sort of the business of leadership. So I obviously want to get an answer from you which is different from what you have said so far. And I think you all have the answer. But to prompt the answer, I'm going to show you a small video, which is a nice video. Is that band karte light? Some of you may have seen this video, but you will enjoy seeing it again and also watching it in the light of the discussion that we're having. Tell me if you cannot hear in the back.
सर आपके लिए उस पार कार का इंतजाम किया है सर।
Now you can see why I dress like this. You can cut through traffic.
I hate this movie. कुछ करो ना।
वहाँ जाके क्या उखाड़ लूँगा?
कैसी जाने बूंदे आए, जाने कैसा दर्द आए, सामने क्या है ये तेरे, क्यों रुका है तू बता दे।
part of the Lead India campaign. So did you see any leaders in this? The kid? Everybody agrees the kid is a leader? Were there other leaders in this? Nobody? Sorry? There's a fake leader in it. Okay. So no authentic leaders other than the kid. So people are clear that this kid is a leader. You saw some of the qualities that we talked about, courage, taking initiative. But ultimately, why were you left with this overwhelming feeling that he really... So can you speak up and did everybody hear what he had to say?
It's a combination of action and the result.
It's a combination of the action and the result. It's the first time that we've actually acknowledged that there was a result that... Have you been listening to my talk so? So, the one important thing that we always are very shy to acknowledge or mention. It's so nice to talk about all these wonderful qualities. And it's a little bit crass to say that leadership is actually about achieving something. It's not, doesn't sound as noble because you are now talking about actually getting something done. And that's why Nikhil will never be considered a leader until he demonstrates something. What has happened somewhere in our world is that we get so taken up by all these wonderful qualities that we start focusing on the qualities rather than the fact that the world is still a very harsh place. And it still judges a person who has been a minister, who is the prime minister of one of the largest countries and the largest democracy in the world, and sits here and passes judgment and says, no, he's not the leader. And the reason is because he did not deliver. He probably had a lot of these qualities, we really don't know. But the moment the delivery happens, we assume that all these qualities were there. And it is so stark that we are saying that as a finance minister he did deliver and therefore he was a leader then. And that's a different point which I'll come to in a minute. But the first point about authentic leadership that I want to let you go away today with is that the authenticity in leadership, and we all do this, this is not a new point I'm making, you all know this. We are just shy of admitting it or stating it. Yeah, let me just finish it. Is really that somewhere you have to deliver something. Just having the attributes is actually not good enough. It's very nice to be all of those things. But the world that is out there actually measures you by the results you deliver. Yeah.
The point was that had you stopped the meter right at the point the kid took the initiative to go and push the tree there, you would have had the same opinion. Okay.
Yes, so I mean, listen, don't analyze the video too much. I think we would have been driven by the emotion and the popularity and the fact that he took initiative.
No, but my point is that he could not have achieved the result alone. He went and he took the initiative to do it, but others also joined him and helped him achieve it.
So do you think the others are leaders also?
I don't think so, but he was the only one to go take the initiative. So I don't think it's only about this.
Is there a different point of view on this? Is he the only leader here?
He's actually not the only leader. Everyone has a leadership quality within themselves. It's just up to you whether you're able to show it and bring it out. Like in the middle they showed a man just sitting and like, okay fine, let it be. There's one girl sitting, okay, do this.
What about the other people who joined him?
Yeah, so they were just there and they were not, they gave up on the idea that we can bring a change.
Yeah, no, but some people joined him, right? We focused on that one person, we focused on the kid and there's no dispute about the kid. I'm just asking now a new question. So think about it. The others who joined him, there were people who didn't join him. Obviously the policemen were sitting in the car and one was sleeping and there were people who were on the phone. There was was the politician, of course, who walked through. But there were others who joined. Do you think they were leaders or not leaders? And if you go back to our own admission unanimously that achieving a result or delivering a result is what we judge people by, did those people play a role in achieving that result? And should they be considered a leader?
In that situation.
In that situation? Okay, yeah.
I think this is something that was mentioned earlier also. A lot of people can be leaders if presented with the right opportunity.
Right.
So it's also the opportunity, and in this case they became leaders because they saw the opportunity.
Yeah, so let me just close off that point because it can often confuse people. Thank you for bringing that up. And this is the point about Manmohan Singh, for example. If we agree that the point about authenticity is that you have to deliver on and deliver results, what is also true is that once you've delivered in one situation doesn't mean that you will deliver in every situation. And this is the other big mistake that we make in our judgment of leaders. This is a huge flaw that we have in all our thinking where we say, oh, this person has done really well as a finance minister, so prime minister bana. Now, it's not to say that he may not succeed as the prime minister, but the truth of the matter is that he didn't. And there are countless examples of people who have actually been taken out of a role because they demonstrated leadership in one situation, were put in a certain role and were unsuccessful. And then we immediately condemn them and say, oh, he's not a leader, as we are doing that in this case. But it's also true that that is how people judge leadership. Yeah.
Or they might be in the same role, but their situation changes.
Yes, the context changes. Sorry?
Winston Churchill
Yes.
was very successful during the war,
Yeah.
but later
Yeah, I mean, you look at a person like me, you know, I was involved in starting a B school. A lot of people don't know that I also started a B school called the Sanskriti School of Business in Baroda, and that it shut down in 2 years, right? I think the people of Baroda would say that I was a failure, that I did not demonstrate leadership. Yet most people know me for having created and built ISB, right? So it is very true that people really judge you by your successes. Success in one situation doesn't carry over to another situation. Success in the same role doesn't mean that each time you will deliver, which is the point you were making about him being prime minister for 2 terms. Winston Churchill was the only person who was actually prime minister of Britain in the 1900s for 2 terms, which were not back-to-back terms. Usually what happens is people serve 1 term and then they get re-elected for the 2nd term. He actually was elected. Then he lost the election and then he came back. But in the first one he was a real hero, and even today in Britain people say he's the greatest living Briton ever because of his achievements in the Second World War. But obviously he was a complete failure during the Cold War and was not. And I think there are countless examples. Again, Manmohan Singh is a good example, even though he had back-to-back terms. So I think again to reinforce the points I'm making, number one, when people judge leadership, they judge it quite harshly by only looking at whether you delivered or not. And 2, the fact that you delivered in one situation does not mean that you will deliver in every situation. Okay. What is the other big defining thing about all these? And I think this is a more obvious point that everybody gets. What is the other key ingredient that people judge you for, other than all these attributes? Yeah, so I think the followership point and the fact that you need to have people follow you is a very obvious point that most people get. But for those of you who are familiar with mathematical theorems and so on, the followership is not a necessary, it's not a sufficient condition. Sorry, I'm confusing you. The followership is not a sufficient condition. We have a lot of people who are very inspiring and who have lots of followership, right? And that is where you distinguish between a Amitabh Bachchan who's an icon and who could technically be said to have followership, but may not be considered as a leader. a difference between being popular and having a lot of, so here followership is really about followership in the context of your leadership, not because you are a famous Bollywood actor or somebody who is very popular. Right? So again, and I'm going to stop talking because my talking will become boring, but I'd like to give you a glimpse into another talk which is on video, which talks about various aspects of leadership, but in particular illustrates some points about followership and building followership, which I think are very important as the other part of authentic leadership, right? So one part is that, listen, just because you have a position doesn't mean that you can be considered a leader. You will have to deliver. And time again, each time you have to deliver. And the other is that people expect you to have followership. Right? This is a slightly non-traditional example of followership. I think it's an interesting video, so you may want to take some notes as you watch the video. Some of you may have seen the video. This is a gentleman who's the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra. His name is Ben Zander. Some of you may have seen the video. It's a TED Talk. I have found that every time I watch the TED Talk, I get some new insights into watching the video, and it's anyway fun. I know that these are very heavy American accents, so it may be difficult to follow. I couldn't find one with subtitles on it, so you have to pay attention to what he's saying. In the end, he's talking about an example which has to do with Auschwitz, which was a concentration camp. So if you missed that bit, I just want to give you that lead that he's talking about a boy and a brother and sister who were going off to concentration camp at the last conversation that they had. Again, this video has a jumble of ideas, but to me it inspires a lot of good thoughts around how do you think about followership, and again a lot of general ideas around leadership in India. I'll switch off the lights. आप लाइट बंद कर देंगे?
And down to find if there was any opportunity. Probably a lot of you know the story of the two salesmen who went down to Africa in the 1900s. They were sent down to find if there was any opportunity for selling shoes, and they wrote telegrams back to Manchester. And one of them wrote, "Situation hopeless, stop, they don't wear shoes." And the other one wrote, "Glorious opportunity, they don't have any shoes yet." Now there's a similar situation in the classical music world, because there are some people who think that classical music is dying, and there are some of us who think you ain't seen nothing yet. And rather than go into statistics and trends and tell you about all the orchestras that are closing and the record companies that are folding, I thought we should do an experiment tonight. An experiment. Actually, it's not really an experiment because I know the outcome. But it's like an experiment. Now, before we start, I need to do two things. One is I want to remind you of what a 7-year-old child sounds like when he plays the piano. Maybe you have this child at home. He sounds something like this. Now, if he practices for a year and takes lessons, he's now 8 and he sounds like this. Then he practices for another year and takes lessons, now he's 9. And then he practices for another year and takes lessons, now he's 10. your ear, you would have heard this. Was not maybe what you thought, which was he suddenly became passionate, engaged, involved, got a new teacher, hit puberty, or whatever it is. What actually happened was the impulses were reduced. You see, the first time he was playing with an impulse on every note. And the second, with an impulse every other note. You can see it by looking at my head. But the nine-year-old put an impulse on every 4 notes. And the 10-year-old on every 8 notes. And the 11-year-old, 1 impulse on the whole phrase. I don't know how I got into this position. I didn't say I'm going to move my shoulder over, move my body. No, the music pushed me over, which is why I call it one buttock playing. Could be the other buttock. You know, a gentleman was once watching a presentation I was doing, and I was working with a young pianist. He was the president of a corporation in Ohio. And I was working with this young pianist, and I said, the trouble with you is you're a 2-buttock player. You should be a 1-buttock player. And I moved his body like that while he was playing. Suddenly the music took off, took flight. There was a gasp in the audience when they heard the difference. And then I got a letter from this gentleman. He said, I was so moved, I went back and I transformed my entire company into a 1-buttock company. Now, the other thing I want to do is to tell you about you. There are 1,600 people, I believe. My estimation is that probably 45 of you are absolutely passionate about classical music. You adore classical music. Your FM is always on that classical dial. And you have CDs in your car, and you go to the symphony, and your children are playing instruments. You can't imagine your life without classical music. That's the first group. It's quite a small group. Then there's another group, bigger group. These are the people who don't mind classical music. You know, you come home from a long day and you take a glass of wine and you put your feet up a little, Vivaldi in the background doesn't do any harm. That's the second group. Now comes the third group. These are the people who never listen to classical music. It's just simply not part of your life. You might hear it like second-hand smoke at the airport, but and maybe a little bit of a march from Aida when you come into the hall, but otherwise you never hear it. That's probably the largest group of all. And then there's a very small group. These are the people who think they're tone deaf. Amazing number of people think they're tone deaf. Actually, I hear a lot, my husband is tone deaf. Actually, you cannot be tone deaf. Nobody is tone deaf. If you were tone deaf, you couldn't change the gears on your car, in a stick-shift car. You couldn't tell the difference between somebody from Texas and somebody from Rome. And the telephone, if your mother calls on that miserable telephone, she calls and says hello. You not only know who it is, you know what mood she's in. You have a fantastic ear. Everybody has a fantastic ear. So nobody is tone deaf. But I tell you what, it doesn't work for me to go on with this thing with such a wide gulf between those who understand, love, and passionate about classical music and those who have no relationship to it at all. The tone deaf people, they're no longer here. But even between those 3 categories, it's too wide a gulf. So I'm not going to go on until every single person in this room, downstairs and in Aspen, and everybody else looking, will come to love and understand classical music. So that's what we're going to do. Now, you notice that there is not the slightest doubt in my mind that this is going to work, if you look at my face, right? It's one of the characteristics of a leader that he knocked out for one moment the capacity of the people he's leading to realize whatever he's dreaming. Imagine if Martin Luther King had said, I have a dream! Of course, I'm not sure they'll be up to it. All right, so I'm going to take a piece of Chopin. This is a beautiful prelude by Chopin. Some of you will know it. actually happened in this room. When I started, you thought, how beautiful that sounds. I don't think we should go to the same place for our summer holidays next year. It's funny, isn't it? It's funny how those thoughts kind of waft into your head when we're in the afternoon. And of course, the piece is long and you've had a long day, you might actually drift off. And then your companion will dig you in the ribs and say, wake up, it's culture! And then you feel even worse. But has it ever occurred to you that the reason you feel sleepy in classical music is not because of you, but because of us? Did anybody think while I was playing, why is he using so many impulses? If I'd done this with my head, you certainly would have thought it. And for the rest of your life, every time you hear classical music, you'll always be able to know if you hear those impulses. So let's see what's really going on here. We have a B. This is a B. The next note is a C. And the job of the C is to make the B sad. And it does, doesn't it? Composers know that. If they want sad music, they just play those two notes. But basically, it's just a B with four sads. Now it goes down to A. Now to G. And then to F. So we have B, A, G, F. And if we have B, A, G, F, what do we expect next? Oh, that might have been a fluke. Let's try it again. Ooh, the Ted choir. And you notice nobody is tone deaf. Is that right? Nobody's, you know, every village in Bangladesh and every hamlet in China, everybody knows. Da, 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 da. Everybody knows who's expecting that E. Now Chopin didn't want to reach the E there, because what will have happened? It'll be over, like Hamlet. You remember Hamlet, Act 1, Scene 3, he finds out that his uncle killed his father. You remember, he keeps on going up to his uncle and almost killing him. And then he backs away, and then he goes up to him again and almost kills him. And the critics, all of them sitting in the back row, they have to have an opinion, so they say Hamlet is a procrastinator. Or they say Hamlet has an Oedipus complex. Now otherwise the play would be over, stupid. That's why Shakespeare puts all that stuff in Hamlet, you know, Ophelia going mad and the play within the play, and Yorick's skull and the grave diggers. That's in order to delay until Act 5 he can kill him. It's the same with the Chopin. He's just about to reach the E, and he says, oops, better go back up and do it again. So he does it again. Now he gets excited. That's exciting, you don't have to worry about it. Now he gets to F sharp, and finally he goes down to E. But it's the wrong chord. Because the chord he's looking for is this one. It said he does. Now we call that a deceptive cadence. Because it deceives us. I always tell my students, if you have a deceptive cadence, be sure to raise your eyebrows, then everybody will know. So he gets to E, but it's the wrong chord. Now he tries E again. That chord doesn't work. Now he tries E again. That chord doesn't work. Now he tries E again. That doesn't work. And then finally, there's a gentleman in the front row who went, It's the same gesture he makes when he comes home after a long day, turns off the key in his car and says, I'm home. Because we all know where home is. So this is a piece which goes from away to home. And I'm going to play it all the way through, and you're going to follow. B, C, B, C, B, C, B, D, down to A, down to G, down to F, almost goes to E, but otherwise the play would be over. Goes back up to B, gets very excited, goes to F sharp, goes to E, it's the wrong chord, it's the wrong chord, it's the wrong chord, and finally goes to E, and it's home. And what you're going to see is one buttock playing. Because for me to join the B to the E, I have to stop thinking about every single note along the way and start thinking about the long, long line from B to E. Right? You know, we were just in South Africa, and you can't go to South Africa without thinking of Mandela in jail for 27 years. What was he thinking about? Lunch? No, he was thinking about the vision for South Africa and for human beings. That's okay. This is about vision. This is about the long line, like the bird who flies over the field and doesn't care about the fences underneath. Right? So now you're going to follow the line all the way from B to E. And I have one last request before I play this piece all the way through. Would you think of somebody who you adore, who's no longer there? A beloved grandmother, a lover, somebody in your life who you love with all your heart, but that person is no longer with you. Bring that person into your mind, and at the same time, follow the line all the way from B to E, and you'll hear everything that Chopin had to say. But I did this at a school in Boston with about 7th graders, 12-year-olds. And I did exactly what I did with you, and I told them and explained them the whole thing. And at the end, they went crazy, clapping. They were clapping, I was clapping, they were clapping. Finally, I said, why am I clapping? One of the little kids said, because we were listening. Think of it, 1,600 people, busy people, involved in all sorts of different things, listening, understanding, and being moved by a piece by Chopin. Now that is something. Now am I sure that every single person followed that, understood it, was moved by it? Of course I can't be sure, but I tell you what happened to me. I was in Ireland during the Troubles 10 years ago, and I was working with some Catholic and Protestant kids on conflict resolution, and I did this with them. Risky thing to do because they were street kids. And one of them came to me the next morning and he said, you know, I've never listened to classical music in my life, but when you played that shopping piece, he said, my brother was shot last year and I didn't cry for him, but last night when you played that piece, he was the one I was thinking about. And I felt the tears streaming down my face, and you know, it felt really good to cry for my brother. So I made up my mind at that moment that classical music is for everybody. Everybody. Now, how would you walk? Because you know my profession, the music profession, doesn't see it that way. They say 3% of the population likes classical music. If only we could move it to 4%, our problems would be over. I say, how would you walk? How would you talk? How would you be if you thought 3% of the population likes classical music? Only we could move it to 4%. How would you walk? How would you talk? How would you be if you thought everybody loves classical music, they just haven't found out about it yet? See, these are totally different worlds. Now, I had an amazing experience was 45 years old. I'd been conducting for 20 years, and I suddenly had a realization. The conductor of an orchestra doesn't make a sound. My picture appears on the front of the CD. But the conductor doesn't make a sound. He depends for his power on his ability to make other people powerful. And that changed everything for me. It was totally life-changing. People in my orchestra came up to me and said, "Ben, what happened?" That's what happened. I realized my job was to awaken possibility in other people. And of course I wanted to know whether I was doing that. And you know how you find out? You look at their eyes. If their eyes are shining, you know you're doing it. You could light up a village with this guy's eyes. Right. So if the eyes are shining, you know you're doing it. If the eyes are not shining, you get to ask a question. And this is the question. Who am I being that my player's eyes are not shining? We can do that with our children too. Who am I being that my children's eyes are not shining? That's a totally different world. Now we're all about to end this magical on the mountain week, and we're going back into the world. And I say it's appropriate for us to ask the question, who are we being as we go back out into the world? And you know, I have a definition of success. For me, it's very simple. It's not about wealth and fame and power. It's about how many shining eyes I have around me. So now I have one last thought, which is that it really makes a difference what we say. The words that come out of our mouth. I learned this from a woman who survived Auschwitz, one of the rare survivors. She went to Auschwitz when she was 15 years old, and her brother was 8, and the parents were lost. And she told me this. She said, "We were in the train going to Auschwitz, and I looked down and I saw my brother's shoes were missing. And I said, are you so stupid? Can't you keep your things together, for goodness sake?" The way an elder sister might speak to a younger brother. Unfortunately, it was the last thing she ever said to him, because she never saw him again. He did not survive. And so when she came out of Auschwitz, she made a vow. She told me this. She said, "I walked out of Auschwitz into life, and I made a vow. And the vow was, I will never say anything that couldn't stand as the last thing I ever say." Now, can we do that? No, and we'll make ourselves wrong and others wrong. But it is a possibility to live into. Thank you. Shining eye. Shining eye.
Share whatever one or two things you took away. Any quotes you remember, anything you remember here?
Needed when this power to make other people powerful.
Power comes from making other people powerful.
Optimistic.
Sorry?
Be optimistic.
Be optimistic. Believe the people who are following you. Sorry? Create the possibilities. To enable others. Right. Other points that jump into the stage. Sorry? The shining eyes. Let me ask you this. Based just on this video, given the discussion we've had, is Ben Zander a leader? Yes? In this case, and if we go back to our definition of leadership, which is being an authentic, why did he just say that? Just go back to what we said earlier, right? That leadership is about achieving or making a difference, achieving a result. What was the result that he achieved in a very short period of time? That video is exactly about 17 minutes or so long. He was able. Do you recall? Yeah.
He motivated others to achieve their goals.
Yeah. So did you notice that at some point in the video he set a goal? Does anybody remember what that goal was? Sorry? Sorry? Love classical music. How many of you here love classical music? How many of you actually started to enjoy what was happening, even though you never, right?
Initially stated as well that there are just 45 out of them that would
Right.
like it.
Right.
End of that, nobody was liking it.
Right. Somewhere when he actually plays that piece, and how does he do that? Do you recall what were some of the things that he did to make you, to draw you into it? Sorry? The story that you want to. Yeah, so he immediately said, think of somebody who you lost. He really got us all, right? Because you connect the music to your emotions. What else did he do? What does he spend a lot of time doing? Yeah, so he kind of, in a very, and humor part plays a huge part, as you can see from this video, right? And part of why I use the video is because I don't think I'm that humorous, so I can counter his humor to make this more engaging. But the way he tries to explain the technicalities of the music seems very technical, but he does it in a way which is very non-intrusive or non-technical or non-threatening. And he equates it to going from away to home, which is a theme that appeals to all of us, right? So he spends a lot of time making sure that he achieves his objective, right? And again, he has lots of good qualities. He's a great orator, he's a great musician, he's got great content, he's got great ideas. But ultimately what he's driving towards is making us all feel like we really understood the classical music. He sets the objective and he achieves it during the course of this. So while he's giving us a lesson on leadership, I think that he himself demonstrates what we were talking about earlier, which is why even though we watch him for 15 minutes, we are able to say, now, notice that this result is not some earth-shaking result. This is not some earth-shaking result of making India free or South Africa free for apartheid, right? Yet we are able to equate him to that same word. Which brings me back to a lot of what we try to evaluate people on and what leadership has become synonymous with is doing big things. And when it comes to that, I feel that we need to actually bring it down to small things that people do. Like move us in a short conversation. And to my mind, the authentic part of leadership is that all those guys who actually went up to help the young boy to me are also leaders in their own way. And ultimately we are, I think, too harsh in judging what is leadership because we want big things to happen. So the question then becomes, when you go back to the question of who is a leader, it also is not just about the magnitude of the achievement. So I'll ask you a simple question. Is your mother a leader? And when it comes back to that, most of our moms have not done something earth-shaking. They probably never made it to the front page of a newspaper. They've never been on television. If you do a Google search on them, they won't show up, right? But if you think about the impact that they have had on you or on the family or what they do on a day-to-day basis, and you apply the simple definition of achieving a result, then ultimately leadership is really about that. And I think we are too harsh or too judgmental when we say you need to have achieved something big to be a leader. And I think that then flows to another point, and that point is that ultimately when I ask you the question, are you a leader? Many of you may not have raised your hands, but do you have the potential to be a leader? I think everybody does. That potential is never realized till you are able to prove it. And that is the harsh part of leadership. So I think in today's day and age, we have made, there's a word in Hindi called huwa. I don't know if it's a Hindi word or a Bihari word. We've made leadership such a big deal, such a huwa out of it, that we are not ready to allow ourselves to feel like we could be leaders too, that all of us could be leaders. And I think it comes back to my point about this being just something that is authentic to all of us. Each one of us can be a leader in our own way. You don't have to start a company to be a leader. You don't have to get a country free. You don't have to win matches for India. Which brings me back to Sachin Tendulkar. If you were to ask Virat Kohli or Rohit Sharma, or I'm too old now to remember the names of the young cricketers, and you ask any of them, just as I asked you about your mom, if Sachin Tendulkar is a leader, what do you think they will say? And the reason they say that, you can watch it in some of their interviews, and I've watched it, they all say that they were inspired to play cricket because of Sachin. These were all people who gave up their interest in studies or the pressure from home to have a career or be an engineer or be an MBA because Sachin inspired them to go out and play. Right? Now if you think about result and you think about the result of Dhoni that he has achieved, just imagine how much of that pushing of that dream was being done by Tendulkar's presence on the Indian team for more than 2 decades. Right? Then the answer to the question, is he a leader, and how many people raise their hand, changes completely. So I think again the point I'm trying to make is that I have no doubt that people will judge you on the results that you deliver. But I think it's important for us when we judge people or when we judge ourselves to ask ourselves, what kind of difference am I making? It doesn't have to be a difference that everybody recognizes. You could be making a difference to a few people and just being a leader to them. And that in itself is a big achievement because you don't have to have shining eyes in the whole room, right? So suppose I do these talks. I'm a big one for bringing in people to do talks and sharing their stories. It doesn't matter if everybody doesn't go away happy. We do surveys and we say, okay, did you score a 4.5 on 5 or not? And if you didn't score 4.5, I'm not going to call you back. Think of the power of what you've been able to do to just one mind or just one individual and make a difference. That in itself should be, for that person you are a leader because you actually had an impact. Any comments or questions? I'm winding down now so that this is a good time to have a little bit more discussion before I show you one last clip that I want to end today's session. Any comments or questions? Yes, sir.
You put it very nicely. I can summarize that as a book by Steve Radcliffe.
Steve Radcliffe,
and that talks about leadership, and the title of the book is Leadership Made Plain and Simple.
Yeah.
It talks about 3 factors, very, very simple factors, and all the leaders that have been shown can be mapped.
Repeat the name and the author because
The
people are
name of the book is, I will be a little here and there wrong, Leadership Plain and Simple, by Steve Radcliffe. And incidentally, I met this person about 5 years back and I had the opportunity of interacting with him. That book is making leadership so simple. It says that leadership is only from 3 words: future, engage, and deliver. And what all we have talked about right now can be encompassed into these 3 things. Future, visionary. This Manmohan Singh was a visionary. In 1990s, he had the vision and he did that. He could not deliver in the second term. Or Modi is a visionary through his Swachh Bharat, through his this things. But there's a question mark on the delivery. But one common thing, that's why it is called FED and not DEF, E, engagement. One common thing is you have to engage people. You have to make your own vision others' vision. And the one that you showed just now talks about it. And if you can do that, you will make a huge difference as a leader. And that's what Sachin Tendulkar had done. He didn't speak. He was not actually, apparently he was not leading, but he was inspiring others. And that's how many people became good cricketers. So what I mean is, FED is a very powerful word, future, engage, deliver. The leader is always in his future. He is not in his present. He's always there and he's looking back in his present and taking those set of people all along. And how is he taking? Through this engagement process. Not through telling, emailing, by calling and instructing, by engaging. And there are different levels of engagement. That book talks about how it starts, engagement starts. It starts from denial and how it goes up. And it's a very powerful book, so just read that. That's the only thing that I can.
Thank you for bringing that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me the time.
Other comments that people have? Questions? Sorry, but I'll come to you.
This is regarding B-School applications.
B-School applications.
Why are they so hard in judging leadership potential when it's just delivering results and it could be just individual results as well.
Right.
So why is so hard?
But who's being hard?
They are B-School guys. We are looking for leadership potential, but if they're all leaders, why are they?
Oh yeah, because they have too many applications. We are all applying to the same B-School, so they want to pick the best.
And why are we measuring who is a better leader?
That is a good question to ask. I fundamentally believe that one has been involved in setting up a bunch of institutions, that whole system is flawed. That ultimately these questions we don't have answers. We look for proxies, but ultimately, I mean, I've been involved in setting up a new program which is only for women, called the Vedika Scholars Program for Women. We actually don't judge people on these criteria. We say, listen, anybody can actually excel. And actually, if you look at the real world, if you go back to school and college, and the people who were seen to be leaders then, and who are the ones who are doing well now, it's completely random. And the reason it is random is because everybody does have the potential. It's a question of matching yourself up with the right context of the opportunity. So I agree with you. But the problem is that in all of these situations, there is a supply constraint or a demand constraint, or a supply constraint in this case. There's too much demand for too few positions. And that's why you get into this rat race. And that's unfortunately how the world works.
And it's also a vicious cycle because you look at Harvard as a success, as a leader, right? Everyone is applying to a Harvard versus NCU. So that also works. Why can't an NCU be a leader in education?
Sure. So I think that whole...
The demand supply also is a function of what students think is.
Yeah, when the perception gets built up.
Perception is also built on what they have achieved, right?
Yeah.
So again, it's harshly judged. Not potential of the educational institution.
Any other comments, questions? Yeah. You had a question.
I was asking, is it necessary to have a positive impact?
So that's a good question. He's asking, is it necessary to have a positive impact?
Negative impact can also mean...
Yes, I think that is a good question. I have an answer to that. What do people think? Should the impact be positive? Always? Doesn't matter? Okay, fine.
Hitler had a negative impact.
Yes, but we all thought that it was negative.
He was all there. We wanted to do the same thing.
Sorry, yeah.
I think that the impact can be negative.
The impact can be negative.
Very simple. एक हरियाणा में मनीराम बागड़ी लीडर हुए जी। उनका कहना ये था कि देखो भाई बिजली निकाल ली पानी में से तो ऐसे समझो जैसे दूध में से मक्खन निकाल लिया और जिस दूध में से मक्खन निकल गया वो खेत के किस काम आएगा और ऐसा नेगेटिव चेंज किया कि he became a very powerful and popular. तो कभी-कभी नेगेटिव चेंज जो ये बोल रहे थे कभी-कभी काम करता है। मैं ये नहीं कह रहा कि इसका इम्पैक्ट क्या होगा, इसके रिपरकशंस क्या होंगे। वो 3 बार कंटिन्यूअसली एमपी बने। मैंने उनकी अपनी सफलता है दूसरों के लिए मैं बिल्कुल
Negative qualities are same side of the two sides of the same coin. Yeah, ma'am, please.
So I feel positive or negative impact, that doesn't matter in the starting, but the intention should be positive.
Okay.
So that actually matters.
Okay, that's a big thing you're saying though.
I would just like to add that negative impact negative impact is possible, but the net outcome should be positive and it should be for the organization or for the team or for anyone.
So let me answer the question in this way. Okay? Who decides whether you are a leader? Sorry? Other people decide. I can't come here and proclaim myself to be a leader. You all have to decide whether I'm a leader or not. Right? Ultimately, others have to decide whether you are a leader. You can't self-proclaim yourself. Right? Now we've already talked about the fact that others decide based on certain criteria or certain, and the implicit criteria is the achievement. Right? Now, because the decision is made by others, it really does depend on the perception of others. Right? Does it matter to whom? To me, no, that's what I'm saying. I can't change your perception. Your perception is what it is, right? The people of Baroda think what it is, and for them it was a negative impact, right? So my only submission to this question is that each one to his own decides whether somebody is going, what leadership achievements you are going to count in judging somebody's leadership. For my part, I will not ever be able to say that Hitler is a leader, because the way I judge leadership is to say that it should be positive, and I didn't get into all this because that's maybe the subject of another conversation, another workshop. But to me, the simple thing is that impact, that achievement, that result that we are talking about should be positive and it should be sustainable. Now you may again get into the question of what is positive. Sorry? Exactly, so I'm saying that. Sorry? Let me just finish the point. I mean, I'm agreeing with you. Let me just complete the point that you are making. Positive for whom is a good point. You know, how do you judge it whether something is positive or negative? Whether it is makhan or doodh or billi, I don't know, right? But the thing is, you have to make that judgment. If you do think that what Hitler did was positive, and that was good for society and humanity and for the world or whatever context, then you are free to think of him as a leader. If I think that what he did was not positive, then I would think of him as not somebody who's a leader. So I think qualifying the result is something that we also do internally. And ultimately it is left to the individual. Now, the points again that I want to emphasize is though that people still judge you by the result of the achievement. And far too often we are tempted to judge people just by the attributes that they have. And it lulls us into thinking that because I'm a nice guy, I will also become a leader. Or that I will be considered, because I have great attributes, my boss or my organization should actually reward me because of. And that's where you often run into people where people say, yeah, he's a nice guy, he's got great qualifications, maybe he's from Harvard or from wherever else, but frankly, doesn't deliver much. But the point I want to leave you with, and I'm just going to use another video, and this is a short one, so don't worry about being bored. The point I want to leave you with is that the biggest takeaway for me has been that it's not about doing only the big things, and it's about doing small things, and it's making a difference to people around you in small ways and little ways that can leave massive impact on people's lives. And that ultimately also counts for a lot, which is where our mothers come in, which is where our friends and peers and teachers and everybody comes in. And this is an interesting video which I'll end with.
Are completely comfortable with calling yourselves a leader? See, I've asked that question all the way across the country, and everywhere I ask it, no matter where, there's always a huge portion of the audience that won't put up their hand. And I've come to realize that we have made leadership into something bigger than us. We made it into something beyond us. We made it about changing the world. And we've taken this title of leader and we treat it as if it's something that one day we're going to deserve. But to give it to ourselves right now means a level of arrogance or cockiness that we're not comfortable with. And I worry sometimes that we spend so much time celebrating amazing things that hardly anybody can do, that we convinced ourselves that those are the only things we're celebrating. And we start to devalue the things that we can do every day. And we start to take moments where we truly are a leader, and we don't let ourselves take credit for it, and we don't let ourselves feel good about it. And I've been lucky enough over the last 10 years to work with some amazing people who've helped me redefine leadership in a way that I think has made me happier. And with my short time today, I just want to share with you the one story that is probably most responsible for that redefinition. I went to a school, a little school called Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick. And on my last day there, a girl came up to me and she said, I remember the first time that I met you. And then she told me a story that happened 4 years earlier. She said, on the day before I started university, I was in the hotel room with my mom and my dad, and I was so scared and so convinced that I couldn't do this, that I wasn't ready for university, that I just burst into tears. And my mom and my dad were amazing. They were like, look, we know you're scared, but let's just go tomorrow. Let's go to the first day, and if at any point you feel as if you can't do this, that's fine. Just tell us, we'll take you home. We love you no matter what. And she said, so I went the next day, and I was standing in line getting ready for registration, and I looked around and I just knew I couldn't do it. I knew I wasn't ready. I knew I had to quit. And she said, I made that decision, and as soon as I made it, there was this incredible feeling of peace that came over me. And I turned to my mom and my dad to tell them that we needed to go home. And just at that moment, you came out of the student union building wearing the stupidest hat I have ever seen in my life. It was awesome. And you had a big sign promoting China, which is Students Fighting Cystic Fibrosis, a charity I've worked with for years. And you had a bucket full of lollipops. And you were walking along, you were handing the lollipops out to people in line and talking about China. And all of a sudden, you got to me, and you just stopped, and you stared. It was creepy. This girl right here knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then you looked at the guy next to me, and you smiled, and you reached in your pocket, and you pulled out a lollipop, and you held it out to him. And he said, you need to give a lollipop to the beautiful woman standing next to you. And she said, I have never seen anyone get more embarrassed faster in my life. He turned big red, and he wouldn't even look at me, he just kind of held the lollipop out like this. And I felt so bad for this dude that I took the lollipop. And as soon as I did, you got this incredibly severe look on your face, and you looked at my mom and my dad, and you said, look at that, look at that. First day away from home, and already she's taking candy from a stranger. And she said everybody lost it. 20 feet in every direction, everyone started to howl. And I know this is cheesy, and I don't know why I'm telling you this, but in that moment when everyone was laughing, I knew that I shouldn't quit. I knew that I was where I was supposed to be, and I knew that I was home. And I haven't spoken to you once in the 4 years since that day, but I heard that you were leaving. And I had to come up and tell you that you've been an incredibly important person in my life, and I'm going to miss you. Good luck. And she walks away, and I'm flattened. And she gets about 6 feet away, she turns around and smiles and goes, you should probably know this too. I'm still dating that guy 4 years later. A year and a half after I moved to Toronto, I got an invitation to their wedding. Here's the kicker, I don't remember that. I have no recollection of that moment, and I searched my memory banks because that is funny, and I should remember doing it, and I don't remember it. And that was such an eye-opening, transformative moment for me to think that maybe the biggest impact I'd ever had on anyone's life, a moment that had a woman walk up to a stranger 4 years later and say, you've been an incredibly important person in my life, was a moment that I didn't even remember. How many of you guys have a lollipop moment, a moment where someone said something or did something that you feel fundamentally made your life better? All right. How many of you have told that person they did it? See, why not? We celebrate birthdays where all you have to do is not die for 365 days. And yet we have people who have lived their lives there walking around without knowing it. And every single one of you has been a catalyst for a lollipop moment. You have made someone's life better by something that you said or that you did. And if you think you haven't, think about all the hands that didn't go back up when I asked that question. You're just one of the people who hasn't been told. But it is so scary to think of ourselves as that powerful. It can be frightening to think that we can matter that much to other people. Because as long as we make leadership something bigger than us, as long as we keep leadership something beyond us, as long as we make it about changing the world, we give ourselves an excuse not to expect it every day from ourselves and from each other. Marianne Williamson said, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light and not our darkness that frightens us. And my call to action today is that we need to get over that. We need to get over our fear of how extraordinarily powerful we can be in each other's lives. We need to get over it so we can move beyond it. And our little brothers and our little sisters, and one day our kids, or our kids right now, can watch us start to value the impact we can have on each other's lives more than money and power and titles and influence. We need to redefine leadership as being about lollipop moments. How many of them we create, how many of them we acknowledge, how many of them we pay forward, and how many of them we say thank you for. Because we made leadership about changing the world, and there is no world. There's only 6 billion understandings of it. And if you change one person's understanding of it, one person's understanding of what they're capable of, one person's understanding of how much people care about them, one person's understanding of how powerful and agent for change they can be in this world, you change the whole thing. And if we can understand leadership like that, I think we can redefine leadership like that, I think we can change everything. And it's a simple idea, but I don't think it's a small one. And I want to thank you all so much for letting me share it with you.
So thank you very much for sparing 90 minutes on a Saturday morning to hear a set of perspectives that may or may not mean anything to you. I hope you found that helpful and meaningful. These 2 videos are both available on YouTube and on the net, so you can watch them anytime. I wish that you have lots of lollipop moments in your life, and most importantly, acknowledge them. Did you all notice a lollipop moment just now? What did you notice? Oh, you want to thank me? No, yes, thank you. But did anybody notice anything that happened while you were watching the video? So did you notice Pawan, who's assisting me here? Did you notice what he did? While he was busy, he had the presence of mind to pick up a chair, put it down there, because he was concerned that I've been standing for the last 1.5 hours. And to me, that's a real example right now, live here, of the kind of things that leadership really embodies. These small moments of leadership that actually make up your life as a leader. And I know that some people criticize this approach because they say, but you're diluting what leadership means. Right? And that's a point of view. There's nothing wrong with that. But the other point of view is that if we all really want to aspire to be a leader, and that is the reason, the byline of this talk today was, how can you lead others if you don't start to lead yourself? Part of leading yourself is really about doing this. When you can go and sit on the mountain and discover yourself, right? And say, I have to figure myself out and so on. And part of it is just doing little acts that can make a huge difference on a daily basis. So again, thank you very much. Part of the reason we are doing this talk is, part of the reason we are doing this talk is, there's always an ulterior agenda. And the agenda is to make you aware that at NCU now we've just launched a new MBA equivalent 1-year program. And we just want you to spread the message to your friends and to others you know. We'll take no more than 5 minutes to tell you quickly about the program. In return for which I think there is some lunch out there, right? There's some refreshment, sorry. My colleague Amitabh Jhingan will quickly tell you about the program. But just so you know, this is a 1-year program. The idea is that you get a very high quality 1-year crash course in management. Management of a different kind, very different from what management schools and typical other MBA programs do. This is a combination of building the decision making and the capabilities that today's very disruptive digital world needs. Several of you here are working in the internet space, and you realize that a lot of what is taught in management schools don't really hold in a space that is very disruptive and changing very rapidly. So we've come up with a very new, very customized way of training people for this new world. And I hope that some of you will spread the message. It's late in the day this year, which is why we want all the help we can get to spread the message to your friends and to other people. So Amitabh will quickly talk about
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon. Thanks Pramath. Thanks for a wonderful session. I love coming to this room because every time I come here I develop a new skill or get a new title. The last time I was here, I was referred to as Dr. Amitabh Jhingan without having spent an hour in any kind of a PhD program. Today I have become a sound engineer, so I love coming here and I'll do that more and more. But as Pramath said, Pramath, myself, two of us have been working on this now for a while. while and we've launched the School of Leadership and had our sort of first initiative as part of that is a one-year MBA program that we think is a reimagined and a much more relevant, or a program that's more relevant to what each one of us needs to succeed in the environment today. And I think really the backdrop for that is three things. One, success. Managerial success, leadership success is as much about experience as it is about what you know. And the program sort of focuses on the experience aspect of it, and I'll talk a little bit about it. And the second important piece is just the rapid change that's happening in the world around us, the environment around us. So technology is changing most things that we do. And businesses are successful, and managers, business managers are successful today, not so much by focusing on what they're doing, but a lot of that success comes from focusing on what others are doing and then trying to figure out strategies to be able to sort of deal with that. And then finally, the whole notion of leadership and what are the essential ingredients of that is really what's gone into designing the program. The program focuses on three different tracks. It's basically around the first track is around mastering strategy in this digitally disrupted or technology disrupted world. The second is about building successful businesses. And the third one is about communication, leadership, and thinking for impact and change. So your ability or your success as a leader would really be, go back to the goals that we talked about. So what would you want to do? You need to have some very clear sort of goals around each of these three, and the program equips you with the skills that you would probably need to actually get runs on the board on each of these fronts and then be able to sort of deliver that. The industry piece, I talked about experience, and really the way we are doing it, I mean, all of us who are sort of part of designing and running the program come from industry. We've all we've all held leadership positions. People who work with us will hopefully will probably tell you whether we are good leaders or bad leaders, but we've all worked in sort of some of those, in many of those positions. But and we've all been recruiters for most of our lives, and I think that's the experience that we really bring to the table. And I think the involvement of successful business leaders, people with rich corporate backgrounds as practitioner faculty, one-on-one mentoring for each one of our students with successful business leaders, and a very, very immersive experience where as part of the program you participate in industry events, in various other business events, and I think being in Gurgaon and being where we are with this campus helps significantly is sort of the way we want to deliver that experience. And then I think the third is just world-class content. So we're running a program which we run one of the Wharton Business Fundamentals program. All our cases sort of we come from Harvard, the Harvard Business School. So using best-in-class resources and content, is sort of the other piece. And finally, you saw just how much, at least I learned a lot from the TED Talk, and I think their life and success in life is again going to be about focusing on what's out there. So there's a lot of content, a lot of resource, a lot of specific modules which we have been learning modules that we've built in the program, which are using resources like current affairs, analyst reports, TED Talks, which is built into the curriculum, which is something that you'll find different, you'll find interesting. And really, I mean, the idea is there seems to be a big gap that has crept up over the years between the classroom and the workplace. And the idea is to sort of try and bridge that gap, narrow that gap, and provide you an experience that's sort of consistent between the two. We're building the program by involving sort of leaders, who've been successful across sort of different segments in different roles and positions. And again, each one of these people, have signed up to supporting the program by participating in it. So they're not just lending their name; they're actually telling us what some of their recruitment challenges are. They're giving us suggestions on how each one of our graduates
would be more employable in the context of some of these industries and businesses, and providing us with a lot of support and guide around the mentorship and the mentoring program. So that's what each one of our sort of external advisors do. We assembled a great set of faculty. Most of them come from with very rich academic pedigree, extremely very academic and experience, but also thinking about one of the other things that the School of Leadership would be doing is creating a center for executive education, and therefore in due course we will also be considering setting up an executive track for the one-year program for those who may want to pursue an education like this or a program like this while they continue working. So that's sort of the plan. Thanks a lot for being here. And Pramath, let me just any closing comments?
No, I just want to say that thank you so much for being here and for listening to us. Obviously the question people ask is, there are so many MBA programs, why are you starting another one? I think there are many MBA programs, but not all of them are of the quality that I think students in this country deserve. And so our real intention behind doing this is not to just start another MBA program, but to really start something that offers high quality education to students. And to that extent, we know that this is going to take some time to build, for us to build a reputation and to build a standing for ourselves. But to the extent that you are the first people that we are, young people that we are talking to about this, we'd love to have your support and for you to spread the word for us. So thank you very much for coming. Yes, ma'am.
So, on one of your slides, you mentioned about certification from Harvard Publishing in Wharton.
Yeah.
So light on it.
Yeah. So the certification from Wharton comes from the fact that the Wharton School now offers two certifications online, which is in an area called Business Foundations, and another one in Business Analytics. So what happens in the Business Foundations is that you actually do 4 courses in operations, in accounting, in finance, and in marketing, and then you do a capstone course. These are all offered online. Now the challenge is that, of course, anybody can go and do these courses, but the challenge is that most students in India, I find it very difficult to just complete this on their own steam. It requires a certain level of application and a certain amount of effort and a discipline that is usually not possible to do. So what we are doing is we are using these programs in participation, in collaboration with Wharton, with our own instructors in the classroom. So then it becomes a blended program. And we help our students go through this entire module online, but with our own instructors supporting them, to ensure that they all complete the course. At the end of which they actually get a certificate from Wharton, having been qualified in Business Foundations. I have done this in other programs, and my belief is that this way the learning is much better than what comes from only the classroom lectures. Now this doesn't mean that you will not have a course in marketing or a course in accounts or a course in operations. You will have that also, but on top of that you have this extra course which allows you to really embed the concepts very well. The similar course is there on analytics, which includes accounting analytics, marketing analytics, or rather consumer analytics, people analytics, and operation analytics, right? So there are these 4 analytics modules, and our analytics has become a big deal now. Big data and data science has become a very big deal. So this course really equips you to deal with that whole field of analytics, and again is very well thought through by the Wharton professors, which are taught in the program that we are trying to offer. So thank you for that question. We are going to be around in case you need to ask more questions. But thank you again very much for coming, and thank you for participating.
Hi, I'm Nilakshi, and that's my colleague Antara. Most of you have probably spoken to her about this workshop. Thank you all for coming. The refreshments are in the reception outside. Please do give us your feedback forms, because that will really help us plan for future workshops. We are also conducting similar workshops by Pramath and by Preeti Singh next Friday at the Unitech Cyber Park in Gurgaon. If there's anybody who you think would be interested, if you enjoyed the workshop and think others should benefit from it too, please do spread the word, please do let people know. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.